Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to today's Q&A. I'm so excited to get to answering all of your guys' questions. I asked you over on YouTube to send me some, and I got the most questions I've ever got before. So I've got some on YouTube, I've got some on Instagram. I'm gonna try to get through all of them if I can, so my answers aren't gonna be as thorough, but I really just want to try to answer as many questions as I can. There was lots of moving questions, lots of baby gender questions, so I'm gonna be diving into all of that today. Definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new, and let's hop right into the questions. Definitely pour yourself a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, glass of wine, whatever it is that you are feeling right now, and just chill with me. We're gonna hang out, we're gonna have some fun, answer some questions. I'm so excited. So the first question is, how are you doing postpartum and pregnant? Thank you so much for asking. I am doing really well right now. Last year was a huge struggle for me. 2022 in general was just really hard for me. I'm probably gonna answer or go more in depth with that in a later question, but it was just one of the hardest years mentally for me. So I am now feeling so much better. I'm just so grateful because I really was struggling after Navy. So we'll dive more into that in a later question, but I am doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. If you could give some tips on how you get the kids down for a nap and for bedtime, that would be awesome. Been having troubles with my 7-month-old. It's hard to get her to sleep without nursing her. My biggest tip for you guys is to try to prevent nursing to sleep if you can. So I know that's not always going to be the case. I've had 3 kids so far. Noah was definitely one of my kids who had to be nursed to sleep or had to have a bottle to go to sleep, and I feel you, it was so hard. So with Navy, I definitely tried to nurse her before we laid down for bed or before I put her to bed. I also got rid of my rocking chair so I didn't rock her to sleep. I really learned with Noah that he was really used to the rocking motion. He was really used to being nursed to sleep. And so I learned with him that I didn't want to do that again. So with Navy, I always made sure to nurse her downstairs or sitting on the bed or something, nurse her before I put her to sleep. If she fell asleep nursing, then that it was what it was. But I always wanted to make sure that I nursed her, I picked her up, and then I put her in her sleeping spot. And for me, that worked. As far as putting her down for naps, same thing. I would just nurse her and then lay her down. And I know it's not always that easy. We currently co-sleep because when she was 4 or 5 months, she would wake up every hour or two in the middle of the night. And I noticed that when I co-slept with her, she would sleep through the night basically and maybe wake up once or twice. So we are co-sleeping with Navy, so all I really have to do is just lay down with her for maybe 2 minutes and then she'll fall asleep. That's if I put her to sleep in bed. If she is taking a nap and we're downstairs and I just don't have the time to lay her down, then I will usually just put her in her baby swing that she still uses, and she'll just fall asleep to that rocking motion. So with 3 kids, I try to be very relaxed and very easygoing with sleep schedules. So usually I'm not strict oh, it's 10 o'clock, she needs to go down for a nap. It's usually just when I start noticing that she's tired, I will either lay her in her swing or lay her down. And if I lay her down in the bed, then I need to lay with her for a couple of minutes for her to fall asleep. But that's really all I have for tips. I'm sorry it's not the most helpful, but sleeping, kid sleep, is not my area of expertise. Noah is by far my worst sleeper. He always has been. He woke up in the middle of the night. Sometimes he still does, but he literally woke up in the middle of the night until he turned 3. Yeah, I'm not one for good answers on that. And we even used to have to lay down with Weston and Noah to get them to fall asleep in their own beds. Somehow, I can't even remember how. I think it was one time when my husband was gone that I was I'm sorry, but I can't lay down with you because I have to go lay down with Navy. So I need you guys to just lay here. And eventually that just became habit, and now we just put them to bed and they go to sleep. Sorry if that doesn't like give you the best advice, but that's just really what we do. Another question is, what kind of vehicle are you getting for your 4 kids? So yeah, I am gonna have to get a new car. And right now I have a Tesla Model Y. I love it. I love the trunk size, and that's something that I'm really looking for in a new car. So right now I'm leaning towards the GMC Yukon XL. Definitely the XL, because the trunk in just the regular Yukon is not going to be big enough for like my Costco runs and stuff. So we're looking at the Yukon XL, and fingers crossed that we get it. That's really just the car that I'm wanting and I've liked so far, that we've gone and looked at, that I feel like has enough room and enough trunk space, because whatever car we get now is probably going to be the car that we have for a very, very long time. So I want to make sure that it's something that I am okay with having for lots of years to come. So that is the one we're hoping to get. We will see. We're still kind of like browsing and looking at other types of vehicles, but so far that's the one that's really caught my eye. Another question is, I'm curious if you're going to be doing a gender reveal, and what is your gender prediction? So lots of questions. That was like probably my most asked question, is like if we're doing a gender reveal. We actually know what we're having. We found out very early on in the first trimester, just because we did the blood test. I was like feeling very strongly about wanting to do the genetic test for some reason. I didn't do it with Navy because I just didn't feel like it was something that I really cared, but like for this, for some reason I felt really pulled to do that. So we did the blood test, genetic screening came back totally normal, and then that way we did find out the gender as well. We will be doing a gender reveal actually, because the boys don't know what we're having. We haven't told them, so I want to do kind of like a special gender reveal for them, and I plan on just filming that and then uploading it to YouTube, so that way you guys would know too. So that's kind of my gender reveal plans. As far as gender prediction goes, like I said, we know what we're having, but before we found out, I said girl, my husband said girl, Weston says boy, and Noah says girl. So we will see. I mean, we already know, but you guys will see what the answer is in a couple of weeks. Another question, this is another really popular question. I feel like moving, vehicles, and baby was like the top questions, but it says, are you still thinking of moving? I remember you saying where you lived is not really family friendly. Are there any moving goals before or after baby? So we still would ideally like to move. I mean, we live in Portland, Oregon, not like in Portland. We live in the Portland metro area, so kind of like on the outskirts of Portland. We're about like 30 minutes away from Portland. And I absolutely would like to move, but I feel very conflicted about it, because I would like to move away somewhere that's a little more family friendly, somewhere where there isn't as much crime going on. It's really hard because literally all of our family lives here. So this is where we both grew up. This is where our parents live, our siblings live, my grandparents live, Jamie's grandparents live about 2 hours away. So it's really hard for us to decide to move somewhere further away, just because we've got such a support system here, which is very important for when my husband leaves for months at a time. I also just don't know what I would do without my sister and my grandma and stuff. They are like the first people I'd call if I need someone to watch my kids for a couple of hours. So it's really hard trying to figure out if we want to move. I also just really value my children's grandparents being able to come to their sporting events like Weston's and T-ball and soccer. And so he loves that he's able to have his grandparents and his auntie like come and watch him play. So it's hard for me to justify moving so far away, besides the fact that it's just probably a better area. I think the furthest we would probably move is Arizona, which still might be a little too far. We're actually looking around the same area, just in a better part of town. There's no plans on moving before or after baby. It might still be another year or two before we actually do that, especially now that we need to buy a bigger car, which is going to be more expensive, and the interest rates are going up. So we will see, but right now there are no like definite plans of moving, but I'm still looking at Zillow, still looking at Redfin quite often. Another question was about the gender of the baby and if we have a name. So yes, We do have a name. It's not certain, but I think it's probably the one that we're gonna go with. It was really hard for us to agree on a name. We just were having the hardest time. I had a couple in my head that I was like, yes, this is definitely what we're gonna name this baby. And Jamie was like, no, I don't like that. So it's been hard, but I think we finally came to an agreement on one, so hoping that it just stays that way, and that is the one that we end up using. I'll announce the gender in a couple of weeks, but I won't be announcing the name until they are here. That's just what I always do. Another question is, what does your hubby do? So my husband is a sheet metal journeyman. He is in training to become a foreman, which is great because that means a raise, which is always helpful and nice. And then he is in the Air Guard. So he is in the Air Force. He's not active duty though, so he's not living on a base, and we don't have to like move around to different bases. We are just here. This is where his unit is, and then if we moved somewhere else, he would just join a unit there at their guard base. But like my solo routines, usually that is when he is like gone at a training or something. Kind of piggybacking off of that question, someone asked if him being gone affects our routines at all. So he's not gone too often, and he doesn't have to work overtime that often to where it's like common occurrence that he's not here for like dinner and bedtime. But if he is gone, I've kind of learned throughout the years of being with him and being like a military wife that it's very important to have a routine that you can still have when your husband is gone. I found that it was very, very difficult when I relied on him so much for the routine. So now we basically do everything together. When Navy was first born, he would focus on the boys and I would focus on her. But now that she isn't nursing anymore, now that she's a little bit older, we kind of do the routines together. So I make dinner, he hangs out with the kids, and then after dinner, bath, bedtime routine. So we are both there for all of the routines, like everything that we do. So putting the kids to bed, like Weston and Noah will brush their teeth, give them a bath, get their jammies on and stuff like that, and we do that together. So like he'll dress them, I'll brush their teeth, and then once that's done, we'll both come in here and tag team Navy. Like we don't tag team her, like, sometimes he'll change her, sometimes I'll change her, but we kind of follow each other just because it helps when he's not home. So I know like coming up, he's gonna be gone for 2 weeks. So it's just very important that I have the same routine, because that way it's easier on the kids, it's easier on myself. So I just know that first we're gonna do the boys, and then we'll come in the bedroom and do Navy. So it doesn't affect the routine so much, but it definitely sucks when he is gone and not here to help me, because it is helpful. Even though we do everything together, it's still very helpful because I don't have to do 100% of the work. Like I said, he'll get them dressed and I'll brush their teeth. So hopefully that answered your question. Another question is, was it a hard decision to be a stay-at-home mom, and how was the transition? So I knew from the moment I got pregnant with Weston that my goal was to be a stay-at-home mom. I really wanted to stay home. I wanted to be the one raising my kids. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with Navy that we were actually able to make that happen. We really wanted to be able to have savings in the savings account. We really wanted to be able to have I had a couple $1,000s in student loans. We really wanted to make sure that was paid off. We really wanted to buy a house before we went down to one income. As far as like the transition, it was actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, especially because it was like something that I knew I wanted for so long. But I used to work at Black Rock Coffee Bar. I worked there for 6 years. I was a store manager. It was just like, I loved my job so much, but I love my kids more. And I knew I wanted to be with my kids. However, once I quit, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I was so used to working in a fast-paced environment. I was so used to talking to a new person every 60 seconds, And so it was a huge transition and a huge change for me. And I think it really kind of affected my mental health, to be honest. It was just crazy. I mean, stay-at-home moms are so isolated, especially if you don't get out and do things. It can be really, really isolating. So it was a really hard transition for me. And I think it very, very highly impacted my mental health after having Navy, which I'm going to get into. But yeah, transition was hard. I still struggle sometimes just because I was so used to working in such a fast-paced environment. I was so used to talking to people every day, and so it's still different for me, but I'm just a little bit more used to it now. Are you planning on getting your tubes tied after your 4th pregnancy? No, I'm not gonna get my tubes tied. That is something that I don't wanna do. And so my husband is gonna get a vasectomy. I'm also still fairly young. I'm 27, and I don't know what it's gonna look like when I'm 35 maybe. Maybe I'll want another one. And I don't know, it's just, it's too permanent of a thing for me to feel comfortable doing. So no, not getting my tubes tied, but my husband is gonna get a vasectomy. And then if 7 years down the road we are like, hey, you know, maybe we do want another one, then I guess he could try to get it reversed. I don't know. I just feel weird about doing something so permanent to my body like that. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not even that permanent. I don't know. Someone asked, how has your anxiety been? Are you still taking Zoloft? So if you are new here, my postpartum anxiety skyrocketed after I had Navy, and I started taking Zoloft to try to help with that. I thought it was working in the beginning, and it might have been the placebo effect, but it actually sent me into like a downward spiral of depression. My anxiety was better, but I was extremely depressed, and that's part of the reason why my videos stopped for a while, just because I was really struggling, like really bad. And so we ended up switching from Zoloft to Lexapro. I was really hoping that I was gonna feel better on that, but I didn't. I didn't feel better. However, during that time, Navy actually stopped choking. She used to have really bad reflux and then choke on it, if you're new here. And she stopped doing that once she started on solids more. And so my anxiety surrounding that was basically gone, just because it wasn't happening anymore. And so I felt like I was just on Zoloft because I was basically depressed, or I was on Lexapro because I was depressed. But I honestly think that it was making me depressed. It was so bad. I got the worst side effects. I had such bad headaches. So I told my doctor, like, I want off of this. And I actually had decided to do that before I found out I was pregnant. So I was slowly tapering down my dose. So yeah, I have been off of Zoloft and Lexapro for 3 months now, and I feel so much better. It was a bad time. So yeah, I'm done with the anxiety, depression medication, and we will see what happens after baby number 4 comes. Who knows if my postpartum anxiety will come back, but so far it is gone right now, thank the Lord. But yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. Another person asked, any upcoming Disney trips from a fellow Disney lover? You guys, I love going to Disney so much. Disneyland is closest to us, so we went in 2021 and 2022, and I really would like to go again this year, but we're just gonna have such a fresh newborn. Like, I'm due in August, and usually we go in the fall time, so I don't know if we're gonna go this year. I still would really like to, but maybe not. So hopefully, fingers crossed for 2024. I'd really like to go again. I want to go to Disney World. I've never been there, so we will see, but I love Disney so much. Best advice from going from 1 child to 2. And then someone also asked going from 2 to 3. So my biggest advice, I guess, is to have grace with yourself. Obviously, the more kids you have, the less free time you have, the less time to focus on one child in particular is less. I never really struggled with going from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. It's kind of just like your mom instinct where you just do it, like you just get it done. And this child has to eat, this child needs to be breastfed or have a bottle or something, you just do it. It's kind of like fight or flight mode. And I feel like that's really just like what you are when you have a newborn and you add more children to your family. Like, honestly, just my biggest advice is to have grace and to ask for help. I truly think that communication is so important, especially between you and your spouse or your boyfriend or your fiance or whoever. Communication is such an important part of parenthood. You need to communicate with them if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed. And if you need them to do something, you need to just ask them, because they can't read your mind. When Noah was a newborn, I would ask Jamie, like, can you take Weston to the park? Because they were 2 under 2, they were 22 months apart. So that was my biggest thing, was just I needed to tell him what I needed from him. And I needed to have grace because I wasn't able to do everything that I was before. You will get there, you will get in a routine, you will get it all down. Us moms are amazing that way. We kind of just make it happen. You will figure it out. Just be patient with yourself. The first few months are tricky, just getting into a routine and figuring it out, but eventually it will become second nature and you will get it down. Someone said, I'm impressed how well you keep things together and curious how you manage budgeting and running the household as a stay-at-home mom. What sacrifices have you had to make? Any tips on managing groceries with inflation and 3 kids? As far as becoming a stay-at-home mom, like I said earlier, I made sure that we could afford everything on my husband's income. However, it was pretty tight. So one thing I remember that we did was here in Oregon, we have a bottle deposit. Like, we pay a bottle deposit, so when we buy a can of LaCroix, we have to pay 10 cents, but we can get it back if we take the bottle back. So basically, my husband drinks LaCroix like they're going out of style. We would save all of the LaCroix bottles that he would drink, and we would take them to the bottle deposit place and get money for that, and that is how we would treat ourselves to Starbucks on the weekend. So I remember, like, we spent months saving these bottles, and we ended up pulling out like $200 of the bottle deposit account that we had. And we used that $200 for Starbucks just so that we could like treat ourselves to coffee on the weekends. I also wasn't just going out on like shopping trips and whatever, wasn't getting my toes done or my nails done or anything like that. You know, just cutting things out, because that is some sacrifice you have to make sometimes when you cut your income in half. Like, I just knew that this is what I wanted so bad, and so we found a way to make it work. Another thing that we did was my husband stopped eating out for lunch at work. I would make him a lunch, and I still do to this day. I make him breakfast and lunch to take with him to work, and that saves us like $15 a day. He also takes his coffee. That is one thing. He doesn't buy coffee from Starbucks or wherever. Every morning he takes his own coffee. Wow, the lighting is changing so bad. But yeah, so he takes his coffee and his lunch, I make that for him. Now, obviously, it's been a couple of years. He's making a little bit more money. I'm making a little bit more money from YouTube, thanks to you guys. Another thing for stay-at-home moms is that if you're able to do something on the side, definitely do it. Like, do something on the side, because one, it helps your mental health when you have something else to do other than be a mom. And two, extra income is always nice. So that's, you know, that's my idea behind YouTube, is I get to chat with you guys. I get to get, you know, my feelings out, and I get a community of moms, but I also am able to make just a little bit extra money so that I can get my nails done, or I can go do this, or we can save for our next Disney trip or something like that. So definitely find something that works for you and your family as far as like maybe side income, and see if you can make that work. Because before I did YouTube, I had an Etsy shop and I had a Cricut, and I would make like little oil roller bottle labels. So you can definitely do anything. If you're creative, just think of something and roll with it. What are some things that you and your husband like to do together when you get some time to yourself? TV shows, dinner dates? My partner and I get very little alone time with his work schedule and a kid in the mix. So we don't do a lot. We very rarely get date nights. We had our first date night the other night. We went to a Trailblazers game, and my grandma came and watched the kids for us, which was so fun. But that was our first date night in 2 years. So, and that's just because I feel bad asking people to watch my kids. Like, I just, for some reason, I'm weird about that. I don't want to burden other people. They're my kids, and so I just have a hard time asking. So usually what we do instead is on the weekends, when my husband doesn't have to wake up early and go to work, we will spend some time together. So that's usually when we will watch a movie or a show or do a puzzle together. We just finished a Little Mermaid puzzle. So that's really what we do. And then occasionally, like, if something like a Blazer game, you know, comes up, we'll ask to go do that or whatever. But that's very, very rare. And I feel like maybe in the future I might open up to getting a babysitter and like hiring someone so I don't feel bad asking, but I'm still very, I don't know. I'm weird about babysitters. I really only have let people who are family members watch my kids, and it's only a select few. Besides preschool, Weston does go to preschool, but other than that, I've never had anyone else watch them. So other than like close family members. So I'm weird about it, but we will see if that ends up happening, because I know date nights are so incredibly important. But right now we just do date nights once the kids are asleep. Another question is, what is one thing that each child has taught you, and what is one thing that was the hardest with each child? Oh, that's a good question. I like that. So one thing that each child has taught me, Weston, obviously he was my first, and I got pregnant with him when I was 20. I had him after I turned 21, and he honestly taught me what it's like to like love something more than yourself. He taught me like what it's like to be a mom. He taught me so much about myself and about motherhood, and I felt like I truly grew up with him, if that makes sense, just because I had him so young. So he really taught me what it's like to be selfless and to love something more than yourself, and to literally have your heart walking around outside your body. Noah taught me grace. It was a huge shock to me when I couldn't do everything that I used to do, when I couldn't, you know, do this with Weston, and I felt bad and I had mom guilt. So I really needed grace with myself and with my kids, and so definitely learned that from Noah. With Navy, the thing that she taught me is to love myself. Like I said, I struggled so bad with my mental health after having her, due to postpartum anxiety, depression from trying meds that weren't actually working for me, and I was really struggling. And that is when I started focusing more on getting my nails done again, doing my makeup, investing in my self-care and my skincare and my hair care, and just doing things to fill my cup, because I had gone 4 years without doing really anything for myself, because I felt like when you're a mom, you have to be selfless and you have to do all of these things. And yes, being a mom does require you to be selfless, obviously. I mean, being a mom is like the most selfless thing that you can do. But there is also times when you need to fill your cup, because you cannot love somebody else if you don't too love yourself. So Navy really taught me to love myself, to care about myself, because I was in a very bad place after I had her. I think another part to that question was, what was the hardest thing with each kid? So with Weston, I think the hardest thing was just learning how to be a mom. Like I said, I was so young. I did not know what I was doing. Luckily, I had like younger siblings that were like 10 years younger than me, so I had been around babies before, but it was really hard. It was hard. I lost a lot of friends, basically all of my friends except for one of them, when I got pregnant with him. So that was, I think, my hardest thing with Weston, was just the transition into motherhood at such a young age. With Noah, the hardest thing was him. Like, this sounds bad. Like, I love Noah so much, but he was my hardest baby by far. He was the clingiest one. He was the one who wouldn't sleep through the night, literally ever. He always cried. He was definitely like a more colicky baby. I don't know if he actually had colic, but he definitely was very fussy. Anytime anyone sees Navy, they compare her to Noah, and they're like, wow, like she is so much better than he was. And I don't like saying that, because she's not better, but she's just easier. She's just not as fussy. She's not as clingy. So Noah was definitely my hardest baby, and I think that was the hardest thing. It was also hard because I had him right before the pandemic, and so as he was starting to get into like 8 and 9 months, that's when the pandemic hit. So we weren't able to like get him out to do things. And so now I'm still struggling with him to venture out, to be comfortable when people come and watch him, because he's so used to me, because for years we weren't doing anything because of the pandemic. I mean, it was hard. So he was just a harder baby. The circumstances were harder with him. And then with Navy, the hardest part is definitely going to be the postpartum anxiety that I had with her, the choking, the not breathing shortly after birth, just all of that combined was very, very hard for me. The spiral that I went down after having her was very hard. And it was very unexpected because I felt like third baby, I've got this covered, I've got this handled, I'm a seasoned mom now, I know what I'm doing. And it's really hard when curveballs come and hit you out of nowhere. So if any of you are struggling with postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, I am here with you. It was definitely the hardest year of my life, and I'm so grateful to see the light at the end of the tunnel with that. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today's video. I feel like this is gonna be so incredibly long. So if you are still here, I appreciate you. Definitely leave me a comment down below if you guys have any other questions that I didn't answer. Hopefully I'll be able to answer them in the comments for you. If you liked this video and you wanna see more potentially like this, then definitely give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you aren't already, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.